Hello, I'm Alex Gorriaron, one of your hosts for the JWU Explore from Home video podcast series. We want to welcome you back for this university-wide initiative as we highlight the expertise of some of our faculty and alumni. And we have a repeat performance here today as kind of a part two of our Explore from Home segment, welcoming back Chef TJ Delle and Shawn Goldrick. Our first segment focused on the relationship with Boston Children's Hospital along with the creation of the Magnificent Pie Company. Today, our conversation is going to focus a little bit more on that relationship and the creation of the Kitchen of Tomorrow. And for those of you who weren't able to join us in the first one, give you a little bit of background on our speakers today. Chef TJ Delle today, again, thank you for joining us. He's a certified executive chef and assistant dean at Johnson & Wales College of Food and Innovation and Technology. He earned a bachelor's degree in culinary arts from Johnson & Wales and a master's degree in education. Prior to joining the team at Johnson & Wales, he was an executive sous chef at Hay Harbor Country Club in New York. And while at JWU, he spent 12 years as the executive chef of the Flavor Experience in collaboration with Flavor and the Menu magazine. And in 2006 was named Best Young Chef in the Northeast. Thanks, Chef.
Welcome. Thank you.
And then we have Shawn Goldrick. He is the Senior Director for Patient Support Services at Boston Children's Hospital. And as a graduate of Johnson & Wales University with culinary food management degrees, his passion lies in changing the reputation of hospital food and the hospital dining experience for both patients and their families. He's worked at a number of different hospitals in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and currently leading a team of over 500 employees as the Senior Director for Patient Support Services at Boston Children's Hospital. So welcome, Shawn. Thank you for joining us both today.
Happy to be here. Thank you. Hey, TJ.
Hey, what's happening, Shawn? How are you?
Great, thanks.
Good to see you again.
So, in our first segment, we talked a little bit about the partnership. And for those who are just tuning in to this segment for the first time, I'd love to just share with them a little bit about this unique partnership that Johnson & Wales has with the Children's Hospital. So I wonder if we could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I'll jump in here. As mentioned last time, I like to pay the homage and respect to Shawn for being just an incredible alum and for reaching out to us at kind of the right time. As we rethink food here at the College of Food Innovation Technology, we just launched in June of 2020, which is, again, this evolution of the College of Culinary Arts, and again, where we want to go and where we want to take food. As we're rethinking food, redefining and rebuilding curriculum, and where we want to go, we realized internally that we needed to kind of change the script a little bit about how we talk about food, and not as it so center of the plate and this health cuisine, fine dining aspect, which it always will be in some of our programs. We'll always create the world's best chefs. We'll always come from that quality perspective. But what we need to do internally is to talk about food in different market segments and different sectors. And one of those things with our culinary nutrition, dietetics, and applied nutrition program is healthcare. And it is a growing sector, on kind of unfortunately in some aspects. But how we can take what we know about food and what we can do and changing the menus and kind of the experience that you get at a hospital setting. And it just so happens that Shawn, again, of Johnson & Wales alum, very forward thinking, very smart and thoughtful, reached out to us kind of again at that right time. And it was an aha moment, I think, for us to just go, wow, this is kind of a no-brainer. Again, we consider ourselves a tower in food education here at Johnson & Wales. And of course, Boston Children's Hospital is a tower and a leader in pediatric healthcare.
Yeah, that's great. So Shawn, let's dive in here. Let's talk about how the Kitchen of Tomorrow came about.
Great, thank you. And again, as Boston Children's being #1 pediatric hospital in the world because of 10 clinical specialties, we're looking at support services, specifically food service, and how could we be defined as a #1 in healthcare food service. And so it made a lot of sense to partner ourselves with the #1 culinary university in the country and have an alignment there. It started with interns about 4 or 5 years ago, really to make that initial connection. You alluded to the Magnificent Pie Company, which was really a brand product concept that we developed together. And then now this evolution, which I really think is the real game changer, is the partnership with the Kitchen of Tomorrow. The hospital is in the process of a 10-year initiative that's called Transforming Tomorrow. And as part of that, in the next 18 months, we'll open a brand new patient kitchen. And so our engagement with Johnson & Wales, from the interns to the Magnificent Pie Company, just made a lot of sense to talk about a partnership with this new menu. And we're really fortunate to be able to start that process, working with TJ and the team in the same way we did with the Magnificent Pie Company, which is really brainstorming. And we're really looking to solve for some of the challenges that we see in healthcare relative to just a very archaic way, old school way of providing meals to patients. And we're excited to be able to look at foods with purpose with our culinary team, and excited for this opening in about 18 months.
So, you know, as you both started to talk about, food plays an important role in the health and care of patients and families, and you have a pretty diverse customer base there at the hospital with the patients and families and hospital employees and customers. What can they all expect as this Kitchen of Tomorrow opens up?
Well, thank you for the opportunity again to speak to this. We have a very diverse patient population, and this new design really solves for some core elements that we feel as though will really change the way we engage patients and families through food service. We have 4 key groups that this kitchen design will really support. Ultimately, there are 4 pods, cooking pods, if you will, that focuses on our regular diets, our specialty diets. We have an allergen-free diet as that continues to grow. That you see that wherever you are with restaurants, wherever you're dining, that has been a tremendous growth over the past 4 or 5 years. And then we also have religious and cultural accommodations. And so typically you have an assembly line, standard restaurant line with an assembly line that we're providing meals to all these different types of menu groups and patients. And so 1 or 2 or 3 cooks really have to change their hat in between all the different types of diets as they're going down this assembly line. And we make it as safe as we possibly can, but there are elements of human error there when you're doing multiple trays, maybe 150 to 200 in the course of a meal period. So specifically that on our allergy trays, we actually call a timeout like you would in the OR, just to ensure that everybody that's touching that tray is doing the right thing, because once again, we want to keep our patients safe. And so this design will allow to have very specific culinary teams per each area, something like you'd see in the OR where the cardiology team will do heart surgery and the neuro team will do brain surgery. They don't really cross over. And so this will give us an ability to be very specific in our work. And then our partnership with Johnson & Wales and TJ around what those menus look like, as you might imagine, they'll be very different for each one of those zones. So we can be very specific, not only with the foods that we're preparing, but also the training around the individuals that are creating those meals and delivering them.
Yeah.
So,
no, I just want to jump in. I mean, think about that is just a great idea. It was, I mean, and when you're looking at it from a chef's perspective, you go, man, I wish every kitchen could have the opportunity, you know, the ability to, because we run into the same thing in a lot of our, you know, food service sectors is, oh my goodness, we have an allergy or we have a religious aversion. And I wish that we could do that in a lot of settings, and we can here. We have the ability to do that. So from a menu development perspective, it's so much easier to maneuver knowing that we have this Kitchen of Tomorrow and these different outlets.
and you know, how does it look in the side for the students that are involved with the development of this? Can we talk a little bit about the Nexus Innovation team there, and what kind of experience the students have in terms of the development and discovery and ultimately the launch of this program?
Yeah, you know, it's, you know, I alluded to this last time, and I think it's even more important to mention it now that You know, the first time you take a dive, so we sit down, we have a group of students, we have the Food Innovation Nexus team, we have the chefs and professionals at Johnson and Wales, and we're ideating, right? We're in this room, we call it the war room. So there's no bad ideas. We're just kind of like throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stick. And the first thing you want to do is like, oh, it's Boston Children's Hospital. The first thing you want to do is make it as toddler friendly as possible. And that's not necessarily the case. You have to think about, you know, the patients and the age range. And to have an 18 to 20-year-old student, you know, which we have an abundance of here at Johnson Wales, to have their perspective and their input on the menu design, what's going on the menu, what, you know, what say a tween or a teenager likes to eat, that's invaluable, because it's again, my palate is different than theirs, and it's exciting. It really is to have such a kind of a whole host of ideas and brain trust in this development.
And if I could just add in, you know, that as we progress and we open this kitchen in about 18 months, the goal is to have, you know, upwards of 20 interns in this kitchen. So once again, we're talking about this progression from, you would have students that are literally working on menu design and carry that forward. They could be an intern in our kitchen of tomorrow, all different level of intern. And then again, talking about how does that inspire them to want to be able to choose healthcare as their career, when you're really understanding what the mission we're trying to get accomplished for taking care of sick kids, you know, and their families. And one of the things around the diets, which is really, we've been collaborating on, like TJ said, is not to make it too kid friendly, but also it needs to be familiar. The key goal for us is to have patients eating. We want to have kids to eat. And so that food needs to be very familiar to them. So we're really diving into some of the old time favorites that you might imagine and saying, what can we do to put a twist on them to make them better for you? What can we add into those menu items that is you know, better for that patient, which is something they might not normally would order. And we've done things with meatballs and a few other different kind of sauces with mac and cheese to be able to really add more nutrients and better for you ingredients into some of these classic menu items.
Yeah, you know, it's your first stab at it again is you want to, you know your client, you know, we're talking about pediatric healthcare, and we're saying, oh, I want to cure them. I want this food to be so nutritious and so helpful that it cures them. And you know, there's going to be a whole other layer of this takeaway, you know, these takeaway information and skill sets that we can send families home with to most certainly help maintain healthfulness through diet. But while they're there, I don't know if that's necessarily the role of the chef team to cure them. I mean, there's world-class doctors and physicians there. To Shawn's point, I think it's important that it's not greasy, it's not, you know, saturated in fats, salts, and sugars. But it should have a nostalgia. It should have a recognizable aspect to the food, and we're calling it stealth health, trying to get a little bit of healthfulness in the food without it being like right in your face.
And that's really just amazing, because, you know, you always hear about, you know, the myths around hospital food. And so I think you kind of summed that up very, very nicely in terms of getting people back on their path to health through food. So that's really exciting. And when we talk about the experiential learning process that's there, you know, obviously they're in the labs, as you mentioned, Chef, and then they're in the hospital. For those students that are looking at, you know, a potential career path in food service, and one that's, you know, a little different in terms of the healthcare system, you know, how can this experiential learning help them, or what else can they expect, you know, if they're interested in following this career path?
Yeah, I think that again, we have to break down the kind of the stigmas around it. You know, when you say, you know, contract dining or you know, kind of quantity food preparation. Like you just have, and I did, right? I had my biases when I was younger. I thought the only food I could do had to be in a Michelin restaurant on the plate that was meaningful, and everything else was just a kind of a scoop and serve operation. And you can take my word for it that you know, our curriculum is now changing, and I've taken, you know, I've been at Children's, I've seen what they're doing with the Chef's Playground, the Kitchen of Tomorrow. I'm seeing it firsthand. I've been to Palo Alto. I've seen what some of the tech companies are doing around feeding their employees. We have curriculum here. One in particular class at Johnson Wales is called Chef Driven Business Dining. And it is the same exact quality that we put in, the same exact rigor we put in the fine dining, or this haute cuisine that I call it. We're putting that same exact effort and sourcing resources and into this cuisine. If you love food, if you want to create food and have what you're doing have a very meaningful purpose, this is a very viable career path. And again, we have to break down those stigmas and those kind of that bad mojo around what people think it is.
I agree 100%. You know, it's really about food. That's what we're talking about. And I know you're sitting in the Food Innovation Design Lab, which we were at last week. And we talked about if we had students there and we didn't say these menu items were geared for a hospital, they would have no idea that those food items were going to end up on a patient menu. And that's the goal, is really kind of debunk that we're talking about these different segments around hospitality, hospital food, and just say we're talking about food. So if you're passionate about food, then healthcare is for you. And then the other benefit is you're taking care of sick kids and their family. And so just imagine if through food service, you can put a smile on the face of a patient, and then sometimes more importantly, a smile on the family's face because they see their child smiling. We have numerous letters and experiences with our chefs connecting with patients, some that are either depressed, not eating. We get the phone call, hey, can Chef Travis come up and have a conversation, talk to them, make something special, and then the total mindset of that patient completely changes. And so that's the power, really the power of food. It's like, how do you take care of people through food when they're in the most challenging time in your life, in their lives? And so we are part of that care continuum. We might not be providing treatment like a doctor or a nurse, but we are providing care through food service.
Wow. Who doesn't want to do this now? The way you say that it's so meaningful, Shawn. It really, really is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, congratulations really to both of you and everyone involved. And for those students that, and Shawn, you're a proud, alum there from Johnson & Wales. What was your experience like that at Johnson & Wales that set you up for success in terms of changing the reputation of hospital food? You talked about some of the internship programs, but what was your experience like, and just for students out there so they can kind of follow along that same path?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So I did not go to vocational school or have really any culinary background. So right out of high school, I had a tour at Johnson & Wales, and I was really inspired about the labs and the instruction there. And I said, I want to learn more about food and cooking, and I want to be a chef. And so the 2 years in the culinary program really inspired me. I learned a lot, not only about all the different types of food and ways to cook food, but there was these tremendous instructors that are really passionate about their work, like TJ here. And so as I graduated, decided to go for the management degree for 2 years, that's when I recognized I really wanted to do something in healthcare, to take that passion for food that you see in the hospitality industry, which you really learn about at Johnson & Wales, and how do I apply that into this food journey to really change the perception of hospital food. And so I've been very fortunate over the last 24 years in the healthcare field. In the last 5 or 6 at Boston Children's has really provided me an opportunity to reach back to Johnson & Wales and do the special things that we're working on today that we're talking about.
So great, thank you, Shawn. As we kind of close here, I'd like to invite you to share any last thoughts or advice to any of those current or prospective students that are trying to define their path and their next steps. And Chef, I'm glad you're joining us there from the Innovation Lab, and people get a little sneak peek there. But if you could share some last thoughts or advice for those students out there.
I would just say, as I mentioned, what I learned at Johnson Wales is really the passion for food and being around very passionate people. And the more you can align yourself in your career journey through food service, regardless of the division that you pick, follow that passion, and you'll end up in a very positive place. Hopefully, we're inspiring you to choose healthcare. I think there's a tremendous opportunity, some very talented individuals. And you see all the work that we're doing here, and there's a lot more to be done. And hopefully we get to see you in a hospital sometime soon as a culinarian, not as a patient.
Yeah, and this is this isn't there's not a kind of an end date on this partnership and this collaboration. So if you're enrolling, matriculating here already on campus, like Alex said, I am in the Food Innovation Design Lab. If you don't know, if you're on campus and you don't know where it is, just take a walk through the museum over in the Freeman Center and come see us. We're in here probably 4 or 5 days a week. You can see behind me some of the colorful ranges and hood fans, and there's 35-foot ceilings in here. It's just a space that when you walk into, you want to just be creative. It's just different, and it doesn't have an industrial feel whatsoever. And this, again, it's a differentiator. This is what makes Johnson Wales different from say some of our competitors. We have a huge alumni base, Shawn being one of them, that want to re-engage. So his experience at Johnson Wales was meaningful enough for him to re-engage us 24 years later. And now we have this robust partnership and collaboration moving forward with one of the best children's hospitals on the globe. And we're making a change through food. That is exactly what we want to do at the College of Food Innovation and Technologies. We want to make change through food. We know what hospitality and food service is going through right now. You can be a part of that. We can redefine the industry. We can do so much, and it's really to the limit of your imagination. If you love food, that one, again, I say it a lot, but it's an international language. The one thing that connects us as human beings, one thing we all have to do to sustain life is eat, right? And if you love food, and whether it be cooking, whether it's just to sustain, whether it's to through health, you want to fuel athletes, you want to know where your food comes from, you want to grow for the menu, all of those things are possible here at the College of Food Innovation Technology. Now, it's not a sales pitch. I know it sounds like one, but really, it's my alma mater. It's Shawn's alma mater. It's been such a big part of my life. I have such a huge affinity for this place, and it really is different. So reach out to an admissions officer, follow us on social media, reach out to me directly. I'd love to have you in for lunch. If you're a current student, email me, come see me in the office, and we can have lunch and we can talk about your career. Because again, why rest when I have students out there that still don't know where they want to go with their career in food? Let us figure that out for you. Let's talk about it. Let's make it happen.
That's great. That's wonderful advice, and definitely encourage some of those students that are at Johnson & Wales or prospective students to check it out. Take up Chef TJ Deladon's advice there, and take them up for lunch.
Yeah,
but
come on in.
We are anxiously looking forward to the opening of the kitchen tomorrow. So congratulations, Shawn, and the whole JWU team. It's really an exciting partnership. And so as we close, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Shawn.
Welcome.
And to all of you exploring at home, stay tuned for our next video series. And in the meantime, check us out online at jwu.edu to explore more. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.